Tara Kimji, the founder of Futura Funds and your 2020 Toronto Crew President. We are so happy to have all of you join us online for today's Ask Me Anything style webinar. For all those joining today, both members and non-members from the industry, the mission of Toronto Crew is that we are dedicated to helping women excel, influence, and lead throughout their real estate careers. And over the past several months, our board, leadership teams, and committees have been hard at work to transition all of our much loved programs to a virtual format. We have been very creative in figuring out ways to deliver programs of high value to our members, sponsors, and the industry. I'm very proud to share that since the start of the year, we've been able to offer over 30 events ranging from webinars, book clubs, crew coffees, virtual happy hours, professional development and learning opportunities, personal branding sessions, lunchbox sessions for our members' children's, virtual cooking class to support a local restaurant. We even got out on the green to golf, and we've been able to deliver our much anticipated signature events. And there's still more to come. So for the balance of the year, we have a slide here with some of our upcoming events. As you can see, we are going to continue with our crew coffees. We've got a Canadian-wide event on November 12th featuring Sunny Kelsey, the global CEO of Bentall Green Oak, to talk about diversity and inclusion. And then we have a very exciting signature event that you guys will soon be able to register for with Michelle Romanov, the dragon from CBC's Dragon Den, and also the co-founder and president of Clearbank. And then it's not on here, but in December, we do have a placeholder, so save the date for our members only holiday party on December 9th. While it has been an interesting and challenging time for our chapter, we can say that we are really committed to supporting our members now more than ever. And it is times like this where we really appreciate and understand the value of having our crew. I would now like to address a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and everyone's on mute and without camera. We do have a chat function where you can say hi to each other, but there's also a Q&A function, and we really encourage you to send your questions through using that Q&A function. It is an Ask Me Anything session, so our guest speakers are ready to answer the hard questions. And yeah, so now I would just like to take a moment to also thank our 2020 sponsors as displayed in this presentation. Your sponsorship allows us to continue to deliver relevant and important programming for our members, even through these challenging times, and we are very appreciative of your support for Toronto Crew, so thank you. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for today's event, Victoria Joly. Victoria is the founding partner and broker of record of Distinctive Advisors, a full-service commercial, residential, and mortgage brokerage services company. Victoria's focus on residential development is an extension of her 30-plus years of transaction experience in commercial real estate and investment banking, brokering deals on the most prominent properties across Canada as well as around the world. In 2008, Victoria was awarded the Victoria Joly Legacy Scholarship given to young women in their final year of university study by Toronto Crew in recognition of her career-long efforts to champion and support the advancement of women in our industry. Victoria is also a past president of Toronto Crew, and we are very excited to have her here to moderate this session. So Victoria, over to you. Thank you.
Tara, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I'd like to also take a moment to introduce our panelists. The first introduction is Taya Cook. She is the Director of Development for Urban Capital. What's interesting to know is she's actually the first employee hired at Urban Capital over 16 years ago. Taya has the unique experience to grow with a company and has become one of Canada's top residential developers. With a building portfolio now valued at over $3.7 billion, Urban Capital is a leader in innovation and condominium design. They excel at producing buildings that stand out. Throughout this time, Taya has been involved in every step of the development process, including overseeing land acquisition, due diligence, legal, planning, sales, construction, and of course, delivery. Welcome, Taya.
Thanks, Victoria. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Um, the second panelist that we have, and we're so pleased, is Sherry Larjani. She is the managing partner and president of Spotlight Development. Sherry has led the charge at this growing development firm. While specializing in the acquisition of properties for the purpose of redevelopment into high density residential and mixed use projects, Sherry and her team bring years of experience in navigating municipal rezoning and approval process and creating value through the best use of various sites. With projects currently slated for Toronto, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, Newmarket, and Ajax, Sherry has quickly shown that she's one to watch. Sherry, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, we want to thank everybody. We've asked Toronto crew members to give us a list of questions that are important for them. And so we want to thank you, and we're going to start to showcase them, keeping our eye on any incoming questions, and we'll incorporate them. So we'd like to kick off today's questions about the development team makeup. The first of which, we'd like to understand, how did actually this development team come together? Was it professionally picked by design? Was it organic?
So I'll jump in on that one. It was definitely picked by design. How Reina came to be was there was an article that came out in the newspaper, Toronto Life actually, at the end of 2018 that was called Condo Kings. And it said, here's who's developing your city, or here are the developers behind the condo boom. And it was 20 men. And I mean, I've worked in development for 16 years, and I just found it such a striking visual representation of the industry as I know it, as I think a lot of people know it. And I thought, you know what, where are the women? Why aren't we focusing on the women in this industry in the same way? And why don't, there tends to be a lot of big personalities and everything on the male side. So maybe we've just been in the background a little bit. So let's put together a group of all these fantastic women who do work in the industry and sort of counteract this article. So that's where it came about from. And then Sherry and I really spent, I'd say, a couple months last year just putting together the team. So that's the architects, the planners, finance, legals, really everyone you need to make a development. And we were looking for women who are at the top of their game in the industry. So either partners, partners, leaders who would be on the team with us.
That's great, Taya. Sherry, given your years of experience, can you really take us through maybe some of the unique attributes or benefits of this all-female development team? And, don't hesitate to let us know if you felt there were any unique challenges.
So I think there were a lot of benefits to having an all-female or all-woman team. And one of the biggest benefit of that was that we all liked to collaborate. We all liked to hear from everyone else. And it wasn't that we were in a state where we wanted to just sort of stick to what we are used to. We were all okay sort of looking at other ways of doing the same thing that's been done over and over before. And we all wanted to sort of collaborate with each other. So when we were sitting in the room and, we had one of our meetings, what you could find was that everybody was expressing their opinion. Everybody was making sure that they comment on what they think was the buildings were lacking, or what they saw as something that we could potentially do in the building that could make this building something different. And I think that openness and the fact that we were willing to hear what everybody had to say was something that was very unique, at least in my experience from what I had seen in the boardrooms before, that we were willing to listen. And I think at the same time, I can't say that there weren't any challenges, at least not amongst our own team. But I think when, we had, let's say, an all-female team from the other side of the sort of industry, and on the city side of the industry, we always had that sort of thought that, how is this going to work out? Because, as women, we all know that, we can work very well together, but at the same time, when you're sitting at the sort of different sides of the table, you always wonder. And the city wanted to actually take part into this whole idea and actually have their own all women team leading the development of the project, and they had done that. And it turned out to be something that was, we weren't sure how it's going to go, and it turned out to be a very pleasant experience from whichever way we looked at it. So I think overall it shows that we can all work very well together, and we can collaborate with other people in the industry and outside of the industry, and we're always willing to listen, which is very, very important.
And can I just jump in on that too? One thing, when you're talking about challenges in an all-female team, I think for me, one of the challenges is the outside expectation that it wouldn't be anything but good. You have all these projects that are developed by, let's be honest, all men. There's many meetings that are all men. Nobody's asking, do you get along? Is there any gossip? Like, what? Come on, we all got a job to do. We're all doing our job. And I think, there has been that unspoken expectation from a lot of people that because we are all women, there must be some sort of drama going on. And I think we've really been happy and relieved, and it seems so obvious that we're just working together and having a great time. So it's actually been a really positive experience in that front.
Yes, this provides a great segue, and we'll just ask you to expand a little bit more. Our curiosity is how handpicked by design your team is, how collaborative and interactive in a very positive way. But if you could just expand a little bit, our curiosity would be, as you advance towards the planning, permitting, approval, construction, financing stages of this development, the market perception outside of the city, were there any challenges or any extra explaining that needed to be done just to get the market used to this development complement of being all female is not new, it's a time that's come?
I think that as we have these conversations, and the whole purpose of Reina was to inspire more women to get into this industry. If we keep on seeing visuals in the media where it's all the men, we need to change that. I think that's the whole purpose. Crew is around to get some sort of community going, to get the women to come together, to also change this dynamic, because I don't think it's a dynamic that's in place. At least I don't like to think of it because men have repressed us or held us back or anything like that. I think it's just not an industry that many women feel is welcoming or something that they even think of as an option for them. So the purpose of Reina really comes from a place of empowerment and of showcasing other women and coming together in a really empowering way with each other. So I think because that has always been the narrative, we have many men who are huge supporters of our project, who have been right with us side by side the entire way. So I think because of that, it's been a very positive experience.
Fabulous. We'd like to move on. We're getting quite a few questions on design and innovation. And so we'd like to reach out to talk a little bit about those aspects of this development. And maybe what we can do is kick off a little bit one component of design. And it really is to understand what inspired the 2-in-1 suite, the in-law suite, and all the other aspects of the uniqueness of this design, and perhaps how much of the female perspective informed and drove it. Sherry, do you have some views in this regard?
Well, most of the things that you see in our building that are a little bit different or have been done in a way where it's not done in other buildings came from our sort of as I mentioned, the collaboration events that we held, and from the feedback that we got from the people that live in the condos overall. So it wasn't something that just we can necessarily say came necessarily just from the women but also from different groups and different generations. So one of the ideas was that this multi-generational building that we wanted to design. So we wanted to make sure that we are accommodating, someone who wants to live in a condo and have the benefits of living in a condo, but at the same time have their family next to them. And that was an idea of the multi-generational sort of building, and the design of that building that we took into consideration. And we took it inside the suites as well as all the amenities. So if you look at all of our amenities, as well as the suites where we have the in-law suites, we also have the amenities where we have a quiet room for people who want to go and read a book, and we have the sound room or the music room where kids can go there and play a game, play their music as loud as they want to play. And so we have thought about people at different parts of their life, and we have made sure that we design according to that. So these are all the feedback that we got from the things that were lacking in the industry, and that buildings were lacking. And then we tried to take all of those and come up with a design that's feasible and doable, obviously taking all the financial restrictions that are around every single project that's happening in the city of Toronto as well, and then working with that. Small ideas that came from females where, where do I store my stroller? And we have mentioned this many times in many of the conversations that we had. And it's always, something that catches everybody's attention, because it's something so small, but has a big impact because people haven't thought about it. And, it came from a conversation where someone was saying, I don't know where to store my stroller when I have guests over and I hide it in a bathtub. Just thinking about that gave us the idea of making sure that we have a stroller parking on every floor. So these are all basically some things that we picked up from our conversations wherever we went. I think me and Taya had the tendency to actually talk to people. It doesn't matter where we were, to kind of get their idea. How do you feel about living in a condo? What do you think your condo is missing? What do you see as a problem in a design of a condo overall? And we can't say we were able to put it all into this building, but we tried to do as much as we could. And we're very, very happy with it.
And one thing I'll jump in on that too is you mentioned the in-law suites. So one thing that's unique about this project, we have 200 units in this building and 57 floor plans. And so anyone listening who's in development knows that's a disaster from a planning and a design perspective. And you'd love to have a point tower where you have 12 units and call it a day, but it's such a unique project. And we really wanted to cater to all the different types of family or friend situations that there might be in a building. So everything from a 1-bedroom to a large 3-bedroom plus den. The in-law suite that you were mentioning is we have some units at grade where we have 2 separate entrances. There's one unit that has an entrance and it's got the larger living space with a full kitchen and dining room, living space, and a bedroom. And then we heard from people saying, I have somebody who's in their 20s, my kid, they're in university, they can't afford to move out, but I want to have some space from them. So we have this unit that's attached to it that has sort of a studio space, their own kitchenette and a bedroom, but you can open up and access the larger suite. So that's with, it might be live work, it might be you have an elderly parent that you want some space from, but still to be right next door, or it might be, a friend, any range of situations. And I think we really took the feedback we got from people and tried to incorporate all the different aspects that they're trying to accommodate in their own lives into the suite designs within the building.
Fabulous. We're getting some questions as an extension of this same area in terms of design and innovation. The rounded corners, the building design is elegant, it's beautiful, the staggered terraces. Can you talk a little bit about that part of your development in terms of innovation and design, and what were the drivers to inform this?
I'll jump on that. So we were very fortunate. We have Heather Rolston at Quadrangles, the architect that we hired for this project. And I think her and her team have done a really exceptional job on this building. And how it started, it's kind of a funny story, but she showed up at our first design meeting and put up a picture of a classic Chanel purse on the TV and said, this is sort of a classic, iconic female visual that I think a lot of women can relate to. You know exactly the purse I'm talking about. It's got, you know, it's the leather and it's got the pillowing that goes like this and it pulls in at each corner. And she said, this is sort of the inspiration that we're going to go with for this design. What do you think for this building? I thought, okay, great, go for it. And of course, you know, it took many months and many different iterations, but that's sort of the idea of the soft front of the building, this weaving of fabric that comes along the front. So we have the balconies that go like that along the front. And what's wonderful in the back is we have this great terrace towards the south. So you get views of the lake, and we have a large courtyard in the middle as well. So wanting to have a lot of exterior space really informed the shape of the building. And I think the design elements that Quadrangle added we're thrilled with it.
Well, thank you very much, because you can see when you talk about the classic timeless design of a Chanel bag, now you look at the building and Taya, we get it. So thank you very much. It's extremely valuable to understand where this all comes from. So a little bit of a change of direction. We're getting some questions on sales and marketing. So the design of the condo, we're hearing predominantly targeted towards families and so on. What we hear a lot in the marketplace is that families need storage. Sure, you highlighted, you know, stroller storage as being important, but how did you incorporate the need for additional storage in this type of residential product?
You know what, that was actually one of the things that we repeatedly got from, you know, many of the people that we spoke to, and it was always the lack of storage in the condos and the fact that they needed more storage. So what we have done is we have tried to come up with innovative ideas and options for, let's say, the closets, where you can actually, you know, we have the pull down option that if you you know, visit our showroom or look at the videos that we have, you can pull it down and you have enough space in the closet to be able to accommodate for more shelving. And this is something that gives you more height and potentially more height in the closet, and you can still use, you know, usually when the closets are built at a, you know, all the way through to the ceiling, it's harder to reach, and it makes it more difficult for you to be able to actually use that space. So we made sure that we accommodate for the use of basically every inch of that closet space that we are designing for our suites. And we have made sure that you can reach the top of your cabinets, because usually, you know, we have the stepping stool that actually comes from the bottom of the kitchen, and you can actually pull it out without having it as a distraction or something that's an eyesore in the kitchen. It's hidden under the kitchen in the kitchen area, where you can pull it out and you can use it, and you can reach the higher you know, shelves of the kitchen, where you usually don't get to use, and they become you know, places where, you know, you look at it and you're like, well, I can't put anything there unless I'm not using it. And we made sure that that has been sort of accommodated for. We made sure that we use small spaces that we have in the bathrooms to create these areas where we can store you know, small items that, you know, we are going to potentially need in a bathroom and we don't have any place to put them. You know, that's another sort of innovative way of looking at the small confined space that we have in the condo and using every space that we have. And, you know, our kitchen not only comes with a pantry, but it also comes with a library that could be aesthetically pleasing, but at the same time, a good place to store, you know, potentially decorative things, picture frames, books, whatever it is that you can think of. So, you know, as small as these points are in a space that's so confined and so small, it makes a big impact. And, you know, and it you know, it changes the way you store things and the way you look at a design of a kitchen or a design of a closet. So these are the things that I can potentially talk about as far as things that we've looked at when we were looking at storage. You know, and you know, if anybody wants to sort of take a look at them, we will probably be having a video of all of these vignettes and all of these options that we are offering as you know, upgrades in our suites on the website, and you guys can go and check it out. I think you'll be impressed.
Fantastic. We're getting some really exciting follow-on questions to the commentary you're presenting. And one of them is an extension of what we're talking about. An attendee would like to know all of these exceptional design elements. What's the impact of all this design on costing? Or can you give us some guidance on how you kept the condos competitively priced as compared to perhaps some other developments? Or is there a premium for features? How did you address the cost component of this exceptional design?
I love that question because I think smart design doesn't cost you anything. So doing something where you think things through and you're thinking about how are we going to design this building for the people who are going to live in there, that's free. I mean, we lost on our end, just to be blunt. We have 25% more amenities in this building than a standard city of Toronto would. Obviously, that's sellable square footage that we're giving up to the building. Stroller parking on every floor. Again, that's just sellable square footage we're giving up. So in terms of a price per square foot to the purchasers at the end of the day, we're definitely competitive, if not low, to be honest. I think we could bump up a bit. And then we will have some additional storage options that we'll offer as part of the upgrades program because not everyone needs them or necessarily wants them. So we'll have a lot of thought out options as part of the upgrades where people can do additional customizations of closets, etc.
Great. I have to say the next question that's coming in relates to the pandemic environment that we're all operating in. And I have to tell you, on the residential side of our practice, for well-built product, we are in multiple bids. Product is selling over ask and so on. So I don't want to overly influence our perhaps myopic view of the market, but for well-designed product, there is a very strong market and active market out there. The housing market in Toronto every month demonstrates the strength and resilience of that same issue. But I'd like to turn it to the two of you to say, what was your biggest approach to facing this pandemic environment? Perhaps the supply of condos in the Greater Toronto area. And again, you've highlighted your price point, but considering all that together.
So I think if I were to speak about that, I think when the pandemic hit, we all realized that there is, people were sort of confined in their, condominium units, and they were, potentially a family, and they were living in there, and they had no access to the outside environment that belonged to them, that was private. And it was, to me, that was something that we looked at and we thought that that's something that we need to make sure that we look at, because it's so important to have the place or the space that you're living in where it allows you to be outside, and it allows you to be, to get fresh air without having to worry about going down the elevator or potentially going outside or being in an environment where you don't want to be, especially with people that were having problems that wouldn't allow them to even come out of their unit. So having a terrace, a balcony for most of our units was must, and we thought about that, and this was something that Quadrangle worked really hard to make sure they accommodate. And that was something that, even as part of the design or discussions that we were having with the city, we were discussing it because there were some elements of the design that they wanted us to kind of change or sort of relook at it. And we made sure that those areas, those private areas, are given to most of our units so that it will allow the family to be outside and to get a breath of fresh air without having to worry about everything else. And obviously safety measures taken and everything else in most of the buildings, it allows people to come out and obviously get natural air from outside. And we made sure that they still have their own courtyard. So that if you look at the design of our courtyard, our beautiful courtyard is designed, again, taking into consideration every different sort of age group that's going to be living in our building and accommodating an area for them. But also it's a very large gathering area where people can gather in their own sort of bubbles, and they can use the amenities that we are offering outside of the building as well as inside the building. So I think these are the points that we looked at when we were designing our building. And obviously the pandemic had an effect on the way we looked at those amenities, which is, or areas in the condo. And I think it's a good thing for all of us to keep as a model for our future designs as well, so that we can be sure that all the units are sort of accommodated for and have that area where you can go out for a breath of fresh air without having to worry about many other things.
You can really see the impact of your presentation, because every point you make, we get a plethora of questions. Just the last question, perhaps in sales and marketing, and we'll get a little bit into the model suites and so on. The question we're being asked is, what is the demographics of the purchasers of your units? And the question they're asking is, are all the purchasers predominantly female?
No, but yes and no. So I think to speak to this whole COVID situation in terms of the marketing side of things, it's definitely a change for any new project that is launched since COVID. You don't get the big launch party, you don't get the big lineups, you don't have that momentum in a sales center that we're so accustomed to. And usually you would blow out a whole bunch of units to a bunch of investors and the brokers on, before you even think of going to the public. That reality has really changed. And I think that's one reason Reina is actually very well positioned for this pandemic. Not that we would wish it on anybody, but it is very much an end user building. So the vast majority of our buyers have been end users. We're getting a lot of people from the neighborhood who know the neighborhood well and love it. We're getting a fair number of families, and we are also getting investors. So certainly both male and female. It's of course exciting when you have women who come in and say, oh my, this is my first investment unit, or, this is my first place I'm going to live. That naturally makes your heart sing a little bit, because, that's awesome to have it sort of be projecting forward to also be encouraging women who may not have invested previously in construction for many reasons. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable, who feel like it's a risk to do it pre-construction, who want to see an end project. So I think that's been very rewarding. And I think that we are, it's an interesting sort of side effect of the pandemic on this project.
Okay, Taya, that brings up a curiosity question. Is within that dynamic, no big launches and so on, how do you address perhaps the virtual experience and, dealing with the brokerage community and so on, the uniqueness of our pandemic environment in the marketing and sale of development projects?
Yeah, so I think, listen, for end users, everybody knows it's very hard to do a virtual sale, right? They want to go and see it, especially we have a spectacular sales center. We have a beautiful kitchen. We have everything displayed. We are doing full COVID protocols at the sales center. So it's by appointment. We have the full mask. We've got beautiful Reina masks and hand sanitizer. And I think that our focus is still really meeting with people one-on-one. We certainly have been working with the broker community. We, of course, cooperate and welcome the broker community in. So we have had a lot of agents, especially we find more of the end user agents who are really know their clients well, who are really know what they're looking for. It's not a product that you would just sell if you're looking for the cheapest price per square foot. I mean, you're going to go into a high rise somewhere, maybe outside of the city and blow that out. This is really about somebody who appreciates the design, appreciates the thought out full amenities, and really falls in love with the project. So I think that appeals to a lot of agents out there and also a lot of people who are coming in off the street.
Fabulous. Sherry, can you give us some insight into your construction timeline? When's construction, commencement, occupation, some of the critical dates that our audience is asking about in terms of the construction and completion of this development and the availability of these units.
So we are hoping that we are going to start our construction in the fall of 2021. All things considered, obviously. Our goal.
We will be, no question.
We will be, with the pandemic, I just kind of like to say if and but for everything, but yes, obviously our goal is, and we have been able to reach all of our goals till now, so I'm sure we will reach this one as well. So the goal is to have it, or it will be started in the fall of 2021, and we are hoping that 2 years from that we can offer the occupancy to the purchasers of our building. So that's basically our timelines as it stands now.
Okay. And there's no question that the development community are approaching, perhaps pulling some projects, advancing some projects. One of the things we're really comforted by, and you can hear it in your resolve with understanding your market, the development, where we're going, knowing what you know now, and hindsight is just what it is. If you had to do it all over again, can you highlight some of the real lessons learned and to the benefit and maybe to rethink? Are there any lessons learned at this point?
I would have done this 10 years ago. Honestly, this has been it's been such a life-changing, awesome, positive experience. And I don't mean to sound so, jolly, but it's just being honest. And I feel like what a missed opportunity all these years working in development and not realizing there are so many other incredible women out there and not collaborating with them more and not meeting with them more and speaking to them more. So I think that would be my thing, Sherry. I don't know if you have anything project specific you change.
I wouldn't change absolutely anything either, but I think if I'm talking from personal experience, I think having gone through the experience, on both sides of the spectrum, sitting in a room, full of men around the table and sitting in a room full of females, I think what I would do is I would probably, I would hope, or I would like to see that we have more of that 50-50 happening in the industry, or even more, more projects like our project coming to our city, and to also see a lot more females actually looking at development as an option. So I think I agree with Taya. I would have done it earlier, but seeing how the world is changing and the awareness that's coming, I think our timing was perfect. However, given the option, I would have done 5 more of these projects, and I don't think I would change anything about it either.
Well, that leads us into the next question we have here, Sherry, is that we're getting some questions about, all revolving about what's next, your next projects. Would you replicate the same team dynamic and so on? So can you give us some insight into your path forward on the tail of what sounds to be an exceptionally well planned and productive development experience?
So I think I will answer this, and I think, and I hope Taya agrees with me. I think when we were selecting the team, me and Taya realized that the reason that the teams stayed as a mostly male teams were because we are so comforted by going back to the people that we know, the companies that we've worked with, and not exploring other companies that are out there, newer companies, and figuring out who else is out there, and just going back to our comfort, to our place of comfort, and then working with the people that we're used to. So I think if I were speaking fairly, I would say, as much as I absolutely love our team, I think we have done a very good job showcasing the females that worked on our project up to this point. And I think if we move forward, we would probably leave it open for other females who want to join our projects to sort of come in, and for us to explore other people that are out there that are excited about jumping on board and actually working on these projects, and not go back to the same habits that we had before and just going back to whoever that we're used to working with. So I think that's something that we would definitely explore, and obviously open the door for more consultants and more designers and more architects to sort of join in our group. And, you know, we are hopeful that we can repeat this and do more projects with the same tone, with the same theme going forward.
Fabulous. We're getting a lot of very inspiring. So you're really appealing to the audience, and many of which are Toronto crew members, in terms of how inspirational. We have some curiosity questions. May not be perfectly in the flow, but let's put them forward. We have a question. How did the two of you meet?
I'm going to talk about that. So, as a woman who I can call myself a younger woman in the industry, and the fact that I was trying to run my company on my own, there were many challenges. In order for me to sort of surpass those challenges, there were many things that I had to do. And one of the biggest hurdles was that sort of get into the door and to be able to be considered a developer and sit at the table with the bigger developers and talk to them. And the way I wanted to do that was always to go and find partners out there that can bring in the wealth of experience that they have, and they could sort of put me through that education that I needed to sort of gain to be able to call myself a developer. And, you know, but also, you know, because there's no school for it. So in order for me to sort of get to that, I, after, you know, working on many development sites that I own myself, I actually went and I purchased a property. And the property happened to be in the area where Urban Capital has done an absolutely beautiful project. And it's called the River City, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And, you know, to be honest with you, every time I was passing by it, I used to admire it. And when I did a little bit of research, I found out who the developers were in, and that's how I found Urban Capital. And I actually cold called Urban Capital, and I happened to speak with David Wex. You know, interestingly enough, he, you know, picked up the phone, which was, you know, amazing. And he said, "Come, let's talk." And, you know, that's the first meeting when I had with Dave is where I met Taya. And, you know, obviously we didn't know each other, but we both could see the passion in the other side. And we could see that we were both sort of, our goals seemed to be going the same direction, and we were looking at things in the same way. And it was very interesting because we didn't end up having that partnership, and I ended up partnering with, you know, making the project larger and partnering with another developer in the city. But it created that sort of friendship and that sort of mentorship for me to go back to them and, you know, obviously ask for advice, ask for help. And I think being there and being in that situation and introducing myself to them made this relationship in a way where they thought of me when, you know, this whole project came about. And that's how I think, you know, Taya gave me a call. You know, going back to that whole experience, I guess what I would say to everyone out there is don't be afraid to go out there and ask for things. And don't be afraid. Like I always tell everybody, cold call. Just talk to people, ask them, network. And, you know, that to me is such an important factor in any business, and especially in the business of development, because you need to network, you need to understand how other people are doing things, and you always need to be, as again, going back to collaboration, collaborate with other developers, partners, builders, and learn. So that's how I got to know Taya and Urban Capital. And I will tell you, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Oh,
You know, what was that impetus to reach out to Sherry? Sherry highlighted that she received an incoming inquiry. Can you give us a little bit of context there?
oh, who else would I think of? I mean, sure. Listen, not only is Sherry fantastic and exactly what I would hope for in a partner, but also, let's be honest, and no offense to Sherry, there's not many women who are doing what she's doing. I mean, if you're looking at women who own companies in development, I can think of one other, right? You've got Eve Lewis who's doing waterworks. I hope that there's others out there that just aren't on my radar. And so forgive me if somebody's listening And I haven't mentioned you, but in my knowledge base, those would be the two that pop into mind. And so Eve Lewis's Market Vision, who's a brokerage, they're the ones who are doing our sales for the project. And Sherry, I mean, it's been a joy.
We want to assure our listening audience, our viewing audience, that we're getting many questions. What we will do is summarize them and then figure out a way to get them answered and posted. So we just want to pick a couple of summary questions to kind of recap the session. One question that keeps coming up in several different ways is the surrounding area of this development in Etobicoke. How does it complement the streetscape, and how did you identify the need for this particular product in the Etobicoke neighborhood that it's situated?
So I can jump on that. How this site came to be is it was right around the time that the article came out. And that morning I'd gone to Dave and said, I want to do an all-female project. This article is insane. Like, we need to do a response to this. We need to speak up and say something. And he basically said, yeah, great, go ahead. Good luck with that. He's that cool. And then this site came to us maybe about 2 weeks later. We have a project just down the street called Queensway Park that right now is under construction. It'll be occupying next spring. So we're very familiar with the neighborhood. This site also used to be the House of Lancaster, which is a notorious strip club. It's not something we put in our marketing materials, but you can't, uninformally love that. It was a place for women in one sort, and that was a different place with that female energy of a different sort. And we love the neighborhood. I mean, the neighborhood is great because it's so residential. So a lot of people, I was born and raised downtown. I still live downtown. I think of it, as the way to IKEA. And that's sort of the way I think of that neighborhood. But for those who live there and those who know, it's so much more than that. I mean, you have these great family-run storefronts. You have these beautiful parks, these great residential areas that have been along for decades. You're close to the highway. You're close to the city. You're close to the lake. I can't think of a better site for us.
Okay.
Let's not forget, sorry to jump in, the fact that, we are, as crazy as it sounds, we are on the, old site of the House of Lancaster. You know what I mean? It's just, it happens to be that. And I think that's also another thing that was very interesting, coincident, but it was very interesting for us to be able to, because we knew that there were a lot of problems there, and there were a lot of people from the neighborhood that weren't happy with the, outside activity that was around there, and then we were able to come in and change that and make it into something that's going to be what you would see, which is Reina Condos.
Oh, and you know what, Sherry, that's a perfect foray in what we'll leave with a final question. We have several questions on the design, the brand, the marketing, but the last question we'd like to leave you with is the naming, the branding. Can you talk a little bit about Reina and how you came to select this brand, this name for this exceptional project?
So I think we were obviously, searching for a name that was suitable for this development. And we, as we were speaking to the different people in our group, one of them, came up with the Reina name. And, when we did a little bit of a search, we found out that it means queen in Spanish. And we thought, what could be more fitting than having a queen sitting on the Queensway? But, the name Reina sounded so much nicer than saying the queen. And, we thought that it was absolutely fitting in every way we looked at it. And that's how we came about using that name, Reina, which means queen.
And then also because that Toronto Life article, the title was Condo Kings. And we've all heard about these condo kings in Toronto for so many years that, come on, let's showcase the queens. It's enough.
Well, coming from a young lady who had a queen's name when she was a little girl, but I grew into it, I'm very happy to have it. So I want to take a moment to thank the two of you, heartfelt, and express appreciation. You've done a phenomenal job in a very comforting way to showcase how you approached the development, how you met each other, how you designed this project, and all the things that this audience would need and want to know. More information will be coming. We are going to promote access to the website and so on. I feel confident in Quiet Conversations. You're going to have several of our Toronto crew members reach out to you to look for the mentoring and guidance that is evident in your presentation. And so on that note, I want to thank everybody for participating in this. And I'd like to now turn it over to Lisa Prime. She is the co-chair of programming for Toronto Crew to wrap up the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Victoria. This has been fabulous. I'm so happy that we were able to put this session together. Taya and Sherry, I want to particularly thank you both for your time. As someone who works in planning and development, and certainly as a promoter of innovation and market transformation, I feel really strongly about what you're doing. Someone who knows David Wax and the River City project, I loved the story about how you met. I think it's very inspiring. So on behalf of Toronto Crew and the Programs Committee, I particularly want to thank you. I also want to thank Victoria immensely for all the effort you put into managing this session today. It's been really well done, and I think our group can be very happy about it, and we'll look forward to some follow-up with everyone here. So thanks to our sponsors, to Farah, for your introduction, and we look forward to everyone joining us for our next session in November, and come join a crew coffee as well, and give us your thoughts on any of these things. So thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you so much.